tonight's discussion on workplace bullying. We are your host, Kimmy.
And Diva Professor. Kimmy, the term bullying is defined as seeking to harm, intimidate, or coerce. Hence, in the workplace, anyone who bullies seeks to harm, deliberately inflict pain, intimidate, intentionally drive fear to dictate someone's behavior, coerce, obtain something from someone by using force or threats. Seriously, nothing about bullying is palatable. It exemplifies power, dominance, and terrorization. Kim, how can one flourish, perform, or excel in such an environment?
Well, Diva Professor, just listening to you gives me chill. Being coerced, intimidated, and harmed, all these things that you would not expect to face in the office. Yet, being bullied is very much prevalent in the workplace, and it exists right here in Jamaica, masked by many names and is accepted out of fear. It
Mm.
is sometimes hard to know if bullying is happening at the workplace. Bullying can be very subtle and maybe more evident once a pattern of behavior is established.
Interesting.
Also, many studies acknowledge that there is a fine line between strong management and bullying, such
Strong
as,
management and bullying.
yes,
Interesting.
ma'am. So can you imagine you have that manager that is strong with the way how they speak to you? It might just be borderline bullying.
Yeah, because they might not be able to control their emotions or their words when talking to you. But
No.
wow.
So can you imagine that the way how they speak can be abusive or they use offensive language? Sometimes them insult you, them ridicule, they're so sarcastic, or they're very intimidating remarks that them use by you. Hey,
You know, you're talking and I'm smiling, and it's not a good laugh at all, because I have gone through this and I didn't even realize that it's synonymous with bullying. Interesting. Hmm.
but even so, spreading derogatory innuendo or rumors about somebody. Can you
Oh,
imagine
so,
you're at
so,
work and your
so,
supervisor or a friend that what you classify as your friend spreading false rumor against you?
mm, mm. And this is all towards them wanting you to do something.
Mm-hmm.
This is all about coercion, intimidation, and wanting to strike harm.
Mm-hmm.
So they get up and just talk all kind of derogatory,
Mm-hmm.
spread rumors. So,
Yes.
but Kim, this is this second one here that you talk about is character assassination, Kim.
You may know. I know. But do they care? No, they don't.
Oh dear, this is sad though.
Yes, it is.
I I have a story to share, but I'll talk about it a little bit later. But to actually place somebody in a position where you speak derogatory about them as a professional to other professionals, it can't be good for your career going forward as an individual if you want to grow in or outside the organization. Cannot.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yes. Cannot continue. And a lot of these times, these persons who are spreading rumor, they are influential. So they know persons outside of the work world. Well,
Yes,
not
so
the work
true.
world, outside of your company. And because
Yeah.
of influence, when you go to do an interview somewhere else, you're not getting the job.
You're blacklisted, so no matter how good you are, no
You're
matter how
permanently
great you do at the interview, because there's something called references.
mm-hmm.
And as a HR practitioner, Kimmy, I take references. I like to use the word references are relevant in the moment. And persons will look at me and say, "How you mean as a HR professional that a reference is relevant?" Right? In the moment. Because one, as a HR practitioner, you ought to know how to read between the lines. Mm-hmm. So if I have sat in front of somebody, which I have before, Kimmy, and they will talk to me and I will start asking them questions about the organization that they were working. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you their facial expression is all glamour and laughing, and there's this sense of pride. And the moment you say to them, "So tell me a little bit about your work relationship with your supervisor,"
the facial expression becomes gloom and doom.
Exactly. But many a times we misread the doom and gloom to say that they are the problem. Mm-hmm. And so when we get the reference, mm-hmm. instead of calling back that person to a second interview and querying what was said, which has happened to me. Mm-hmm. You know, I was actually called back to an interview for clarity. I got the job, but I respected the HR manager for that because she didn't need to. But she called me and she said, "Listen, you were one of our first person in terms of the selection, but there is one question that I have to ask you, right? Mm-hmm. And depending on how you respond, it will determine our next steps for you." And she basically asked me what was happening, why the supervisor and I, because when she sent the reference, what you call it, form or template or questionnaire, mm-hmm. that was mentioned. And I explained explicitly. And she said to me, "If that is true, I will know, because I'm going to ask the same question I asked you to your ex-employee, and I will see whether or not you're telling the truth." And when I was called, I was shocked because I didn't know I would have gotten the job. So when I was called to say, "Hey, can you start on X day?" I'm like, "Okay." And she called me. You know, usually you make your assistant call you. No. She called me, so she understands HR. And she said to me, "You know, Miss Waugh, we have looked through your document. Mm-hmm. We have spoken to you. We have done a second talk with you," because she didn't call it an interview, which I appreciated. "And we have done your background checks. And the only person who has had anything negative to say to you about you in that organization is that one supervisor, because we spoke to other persons in the organization. And because of that, we're going to give you a chance to prove yourself."
Wow.
And so as HR practitioners, that's something that we ought to do. Don't just take what is on that questionnaire template or form or whatever we call the reference. Don't just take that one conversation and kill a potential employee, sorry. You know?
Yeah.
Can't do that.
You know, there's something else when it comes on to this workplace bullying that we also need to take into consideration.
Yes.
Teasing or practical jokes, yes. Pranks, particularly after the person targeted has objected. So you're in a meeting, mm-hmm. and I can attest to this. You're in a meeting, all of a sudden, the teasing practical joke, and you're like, I'm no.
So you become the joke.
So I become the butt of everybody's joke, because and then everybody is laughing and I'm looking like I really and truly don't find this funny. And this person
is what they have done is turn the ridicule into a joke.
Exactly. And I know that the ridicule is actually a ridicule and not a joke, but others will pick up on it.
Yes.
So that's sad. Sometimes they might become physically aggressive. You're in the office, you're having a discussion, and then the aggression comes out. If you don't mind, shot them, we want to fight.
Yeah, because them start throw tantrum, fling paper down and all these things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you starting to wonder about, hold on for a second, am I at a workplace or a boxing match?
And this happens both ways, you know. Some persons believe that only your authority, your supervisor can bully you. But the reality is, all of these that we are talking about, Kimmy, can be done by even a colleague, right? Because it's. I usually say wherever you work is like your home. You're there more hours of the day, and people personalities clash. And you know, my brother said it best: people are people, irrespective of where they are. So if this is who they are in and whether they're in or outside the organization, that's what you're going to get. But when it comes to the physical aggression, it is easier, Kimmy, to identify with that and report it. Is the other ones that you talk about that are the masks and the secrets that and the what you call it, invisibles.
No, but I can say that, a lot of the time when they become physically aggressive, it's not in front of others. As if you are hallucinating.
So
it's as if you're the trouble and you're seeking a fight that is not there. So they do it when persons are not there, because they will never show their colors.
Okay, so when you open the door and walk out, there is nobody who is there to say this happened.
Exactly.
It's your word against theirs.
Exactly.
These people, boy.
And, a lot of the times when you get threats from these individuals through phone calls, letters, emails, they're usually abusive or offensive. That is something that also could be looked at. But the way in which it is written, persons would wonder, so what did you do to the supervisor to determine to be speaking to you in that tone of voice? You must have done something wrong.
But Kimmy,
yes,
you know what is funny is that I went through all of the listed that you just said, all of them I went through already. And it is shocking to know that this one that you're mentioning now, especially when it comes to the letters or the emails, I've gone through it. But here what is funny is that a lot of times you don't see the memos, you don't see the letters, so you don't know until you are called up. So I'm going to encourage our listeners this evening, tonight, to periodically check their personal file. It is your personal file. You have a right to check it, right? What you will do is go to HR and you will make an appointment for somebody to sit with you, because they will not leave you with the file. But you have a right to go and check to see what is on your file, because sometimes things are there being written and you don't know.
So you're telling me that things can be written and be placed on my file without my knowledge?
And you don't know, right? And that is what you call secret bullying now, because your things are being levied on you. This is where the disingenuousness comes in, right? Because the threats are no longer levied in a manner. Remember, a bully has more power than you, especially if it's your supervisor. Yes. If it is a colleague, one of the things that they do is they write you via email and blind copy others. So you assume that it is you alone getting this derogatory email, this email flawed with threats, right?
And if you're anything like me, who is very passionate when it comes down to certain things, I might just respond to you, not knowing that I'm putting myself in trouble because of the blind copies that were sent when I thought that the discussion was between you and I.
Exactly, because they've already had a discussion, Kimmy. Right? Remember, it's all about harm and intimidation, Right? And then the coercion comes in. Because what they're trying to do is not only to belittle you, but to create a person who has absolutely no power or control over self. So people believe that, you know, we say it a lot that, oh, the home breaks your self-esteem and the community, but workplace do it too.
Yeah, that's true. That's so true.
Workplace do it too, Kimmy.
You go with upbeat, you're ready to work, but really and truly, the moment the morning come, you don't want to go to work. You're dying for the day when the evening come to go home and you realize that the time start moving slower. Jesus wept. So there's something else that we need to look at, you know, interfering with or damaging a person's property, because you have some of them out there, you know, they will damage your stuff and you're wondering, I could have sworn that I read something here. Where is it? Okay, I'm going senile. Or you just get up and see something break and you say, but that wasn't the way it was. But
or you're in charge of something and you have an office space, which I've gone through. And you went on leave, and when you return, the things that you were put in charge of is removed without even an email to say that they were moving it.
Oh,
but you are in charge of it, you know. You know,
so
these
invading personal space within the workplace?
No, it's not your space. But what we don't understand, which I've come to learn, is that whatever is assigned to you belongs to you until you leave that organization or it is reassigned to somebody else. Okay, so because it is, and this is from a supervisor perspective now, the supervisor believes, right, that they are the ultimate authority on all things, including anything that is assigned to you. So they don't need to advise you that it is being moved. But you can call and say it was stolen because you don't know where it is. So you could have sent an email out.
Interesting.
You know, because there are proper protocols and procedures for reassigning tasks, for reassigning properties that was assigned to you, for taking away something. That's why we use a fancy word in business called what? Handover. Yes. So a list, an inventory list, is done between both parties, and hand over and sign off on it. That is the proper thing to do. And many will say then, if they take it and anything goes missing, they can't blame you. But they will, because you said it best, Kimmy. You said it best enough. You said it best tonight when you said, Kimmy, and I'm trying to recall, I jot it down just to recall. When yes, it's the same place where you talk about tampering.
You start to wonder if you're going to see
interfering. That's the word you use. That's interfering. And now you're also putting the person's credibility at question. And we can't do that as human beings. You know, we can't do that. I'm talking to you and I'm feeling so hurt for the persons who are still facing and going through many of the things that we are discussing.
You know, one of the things that bothers me is I can recall being repeatedly criticized, or certain comments are being made to discredit and undermine my work, so much so that I stopped going to persons in the entity and asking questions. Now, where I used to work, it was a diverse group of persons. So if I can capture from everybody, then I would capture the target audience of outside.
Yeah.
For a while, I just stopped. I stopped asking. I became demotivated, and I really wanted out of the organization.
And we talk about learning. We don't understand that learnings take place in different forms, and that's what you're just mentioning a while ago. So you have a space where you consider a learning environment is not just performing a task, but it's also about developing skill and innovation, right? And being more creative and having that kind of forum where we can actually grow as an employee, and somebody is going to criticize you and discredit your work and take. So what they're doing, you know, is one, they're emasculating you,
Mm-hmm.
and they're making you become voiceless. So they're silencing you.
Not realizing, looking back, I never really looked at it from that perspective, but yeah, they were.
Mhm.
Mm.
Undermining you and devaluing your worth. Your worth, because as human beings, we all have worth. And we need to be careful of stripping somebody of their worth,
Mhm.
because not everybody can walk away from something like that, Kimmy.
That's true.
As
And
I
that's
tell you,
it.
I'm listening to you presenting some of the woes that workplace bullying carries. And as I listen, I am thinking about a sick person, because the victim is now forced to deal with a lot of the wounds that have been inflicted. And these are internal wounds, Kim, that sometimes you don't know how to treat with.
Mm-hmm.
So
And
we're
have
talking
to
about
talk.
depression.
Yeah,
We're
man.
talking about suicide.
Withdrawal.
Thank you.
Start withdrawing into your own little shell because you don't know who you can trust. If you say something, it might come off as being something else, and then you hear from the shout, what you intended to say was twisted.
Mm.
So you really and truly don't trust nobody at the workplace.
So you're just walking.
You're walking dead, literally.
You're, you're just existing in a space that you don't even realize that
No.
you're physically present, but emotionally and mentally you are not there.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of employees, Kimmy, both at the higher tier executive
Mhm.
level and at the lower tier, who are being faced with these kinds of situations and are afraid to speak out. Well, tonight, I am happy that Solutions Technology Inc., Kimmy, and Diva Professor are not afraid to be the voice of the voiceless tonight, because we need to advocate for these persons.
Mhm.
And I'm hoping that the people who are doing it are listening and hearing the pain from our own voices.
Mhm. Let's just hope that they can sit and, reminisce, internalize and see that they're actually hurting persons. This could be your child. How would you feel if the way you're treating someone was your child they were treating that way? So, some of us really need to look into ourselves.
And if you don't have no child, you have a mother, eh?
You have sisters,
You have a
cousins.
brother, you have
Aunts.
cousins.
Yeah.
They're human beings. And when they're hurt,
Friends, how you want to
right?
be treated.
If you have any feelings at all, your tears go with theirs. It is no different for an employee sitting in front of you. They are human beings. And I understand, I understand. As a supervisor myself, I understand that sometimes your employee can drive you up the wall. I had one. She won't be afraid for me to call her name, so I will, Marie. And Marie became my most loyal. I'm going to call her that. My most supportive, my most helpful to this day. I'm not her supervisor anymore. And there is not a day, not a week in a year that I'm not checked on, even if I don't call her, even if I don't answer. Sometimes Marie will just call me, Kimmy, and she will just say to me, say, me know you're busy. Me just want to hear if you're all right. You all right? I said, yeah. She said, sound all right. You sure? You have anything you want to say to me? And I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
If I had put her in a position of taking away her self-esteem, of demeaning her, she would not be looking out for me. And we all, Kimmy, I always say, as human beings, somebody must always be thinking about you. It's a cycle of life. The law of attraction speaks about love and the power of it. And if we have people out there thinking about us in a positive way, then it means that we are attracting positivity.
Mm-hmm.
Because we gave positivity.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever felt like you are being deliberately excluded from a work-related event or social activity or networks?
Kimmy, why you make the listeners them know say I was bullied? Huh? Why you drawing me out, Kimmy? Seriously?
It's a question I had to ask.
Kimmy, listen. I'm going to share a better one with you. Listen, I was assigned to go to an activity. But apparently I was not assigned to go to the activity. I'm a senior person in the organization. And so usually I would be at senior forums speaking, because as a senior, that's what you do. You offer decisions, you collaborate, you network, you negotiate, and you bring partnerships in. Because when you go to meetings, that's the forum. It's not about just going to a meeting, it's about networking and relationship building and information sharing. All right, I'm telling you all of that quickly. So I went, and when I realized that the setting required for that kind of diva professor, I got a phone call to say remove myself from my supervisor. I was there, you know. Me there, me reach early too.
Lord have mercy.
Well, pretty, made up really nice and ready. And the person who gave me their phone for the message to be delivered to me was not even a full-fledged employee, but a volunteer. So when you talk about bullying tonight, Kim, my heart aches because I can relate to all those persons listening tonight. But I'm a survivor.
Pain. I can really, really feel the pain. Because then the next thing that I would think of is the mere fact that, you know, if this is happening to you in a social setting and events, then information.
So what I was going through.
I mean, and I'm looking at it. So this means that information was also deliberately withheld when you're working in terms of your resource.
No, man. I would go to events, and at the event I would know what the event is about, and I am in charge of it.
So you're in charge of the event. Have you ever been placed where you have to, you know, do a presentation on the spot, not knowing that, oh Lord have mercy, I'm supposed to present on this topic, and you know you would have prepared yourself for that topic?
Yes. Yes.
God have mercy.
And let me tell you, I take my job personal. When I'm given anything to do, I do it to the best of my abilities and beyond. But as God would have it, because I am blessed and highly favored, when I walk in, nobody knows. Because I'm quick like that. See, they said that when you dig in ditch, you must dig too.
No, well, man, dig it enough so you can fall into that very same ditch.
All right, but I don't take the old time saying going into the Bible, right? Because in the book of Psalms, it speaks about walking in the valley, the shadow of death. I fear no evil. Because for every time I look down, my table is being prepared. And when I finish, nobody knew that it was at that moment that I was being briefed on the spot while doing it. God is awesome.
Oh, can you imagine persons who are not as gifted as you to actually prepare right then and there and just talk the talk?
Are not even as strong, Kimmy.
Oh.
You can imagine persons who are not strong.
Wow.
Who are not able to maneuver and navigate and be placed in a position to fail by somebody who is supposed to guide and steer you.
And uplift you.
Well, I won't say anything about that. I don't know that word. Not in that setting that I was in. And I went through it for 2.5 years.
You know, I'm listening to everything that you're saying, and it all comes back. I can recall an incident where inappropriately being threatened.
Yes.
So, or disciplinary action or demotion. I recall, you know, we had an event and I had spoken to the individual.
Yes.
Who I planned the event and so on, and I went there. Lord, when I went there, the person who I spoke to was not there at the time.
Yes.
And Lord, my supervisor hit the roof. How you mean you don't know? Who did you speak to? You better find that person.
Wow.
And then you walked off. He stormed off, going to a corner, each up somewhere and fold him arms. And I'm like, I was taken aback. Even the driver was looking at me like, hold off a second here. As God would have it, the person who I spoke to, I eventually found them. And the school is indeed aware, but the one person that I spoke to was not aware of the incident, you know? But God is good. So I really understand where, Lord, I will never forget. That was for me the turning point where I said, you know, he wasn't appreciative of who I was. You know,
he wasn't appreciative of your work.
No.
He didn't appreciate what you brought to the organization.
No.
Because as bad as an employee is, even their little that they give has brought the organization further. Even if it's a minute step. Right? We like to talk about incremental performances, but we only do it for ourselves. Many of us. We don't think about the person in front of us. And mark you, I am not saying that as a supervisor, as a colleague, your responsibility ultimately is not to ensure that the organization's best interest is always put forward, that the organization too is always performing and propelling towards its, not just its mission, but its vision, because that's your goal. But it also requires for you to ensure that there's some humanness in how you deliver your feedback, in how you behave towards a human being, and considering how your words or actions, because you spoke about the physical aggression, can impact somebody else negatively. And I have to go back to the words intimidate, coerce, and lastly harm. So you know what you're doing. You know what you're doing, but you feel that sense of power. But power belongs to God and Him alone. Amen. Full stop.
Yeah, man. You know, I had a situation a couple years back working at another place where I was employed long after the fact that I found out that the only reason I was employed was one was a female. And my knowledge, so to speak, on information technology, IT.
Yes.
I'm sitting here and I'm laughing. That is not a good laugh. You know, the only reason I'm employed is because I'm a female. When I was supposed to do any form of IT work,
yes,
I was hounded, so to speak. No, do it this way, as if I never went to school. I'm just learning on the job. I wasn't given that opportunity to express self and do what I'm supposed to do. I had
it's
brilliant
not about expressing self, you know. It's about carrying out the job, Kim.
The job
That's what
function.
you're talking about. You are not given an opportunity to do your job. You're being micromanaged. Make we talk the things them real, because professionals and students are going to be listening to this, and they need to get the lingua very well.
Yeah.
So they are not ensuring that you carry out your work, because at all times you must underperform so they can continue to belittle you.
But you know, that is funny that you say that. I mean, where I was working and I transitioned into another position for a couple of months. So, you know that the individual expected me to still do the same level of work while doing the other job at the same time. And it's two different spectrum.
Well, me did care one whole organization, me so I don't know what you're talking about. And I'm not even exaggerating. I have my resume to prove it.
Lord, you know, the funny thing is, a couple years after I left, he called me, you know, was making chit chat, but I knew that he wanted something. Then out of the blue, so you have any knowledge of how to go to Canada? So I'm like, well, I know persons who have gone through, but they did the test and so on. So, you know, then he said to me after he finished, you know that I didn't like when you took over the other position and you were there and you didn't assist me. Everything was on my shoulder. I'm like, okay. I was never given a
so you were not given an opportunity to develop on this career opportunity that you got.
Yes. So I was stumped. I mean, I laughed. And when he came off the phone, I just shook my head. I like, for real. Wow.
All right. Well, Kim, picture yourself being called in a public opening office, opened office space. And the question you're asked is, what are you doing? I'm a director, senior. And I'm being asked, what am I doing at my desk now?
Oh, wow.
Right?
So you're busy not doing anything. So you're busy looking pretty.
I must chronicle as a senior director what I'm doing at my desk now. And when I said, excuse me, the question that Harold was, I'm your supervisor, I have a right to ask you that.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
Oh, yes. And yes, when performance evaluation time come, listen, I was at the organization for years. And that supervisor did everything possible to try and score me low. But guess what? It couldn't happen. Peer 90s, upper 90s too. And the more she tried, God said, nah, you still get your 90s, girl. Your walk feet. So let me tell you something, listeners. You need to have faith. You need to let your work carry you through. You need to continue to fight to do the best that you can at your desk, even when you're being bullied. And I know it is hard. I'm talking as a survivor from a point of reference. It's not easy. Sometimes you do it in tears. And then we are the same ones. And we're not going to talk about domestic abuse. But workplace bullying hinges on a lot of what we see happening right there.
Yeah.
And so you ask yourself the question, because all right, Kim, make me one talk. So bullying and harassing behavior does not include, listeners, because I don't want you to get it wrong, you know. I don't want you to think that you're supposed to go to the people that work and not do it. I don't want you to think that you're supposed to sit at the desk and making errors and nobody don't talk to you. I don't want you to believe that guidance is bullying. I don't want you to believe that getting a letter of reprimand that is justifiable is bullying, because that is not so. Bullying is not about somebody telling you or expressing difference of opinion. It is not bullying. Not when it's being done in a very constructive way.
Constructive criticism.
Exactly. Setting reasonable performance goals is not bullying, because you have to have a target to work towards. You, as a good employee, must have a measuring stick. What have I accomplished?
Mm-hmm.
Rostering and allocating work is not bullying. Remember, you must be able to measure what you do. That's why we have the word value. You can't not be able to measure and know what you're bringing to the organization, right? Transferring a worker for operational reasons, like what you went through, Kim, where you were transferred because of your skill set, is not bullying, right? We often talk about skills alignment and personality alignment and all of that into the organization because we call it best fit.
Yep.
And so an organization, a supervisor will see your potential and you don't see it.
That's true.
And so they will push the envelope and they'll transfer you into a bigger, sometimes a higher level task or position because they know you can do it. That is not bullying. Deciding not to select you for a promotion because you were tired, you don't show up for work on time, you're never willing to do any of the tasks that you get, and if you do it, it's late. You're always absent. And Kim, you're going to laugh, but you're sleeping on the job. And so you're not promoted. That is not bullying. Those are all reasonable processes for not allowing you to go through and get a promotion. And then if you're not doing all of that, Kimmy, if you're doing all of that, how you expect to get a satisfactory performance on your evaluation? Seriously. A friend of mine was telling me that she had a worker who showed up for work whenever it suited him. And when he was doing his performance, he was questioning why he wasn't getting scores high.
But it's based off, oh Lord.
No. Yeah, we need to balance it. We need to balance it. So while we are telling employers that it is important, and supervisors and colleagues, to respect, to honor, to remember that persons have emotions and feelings that are sitting around a desk and carrying out a task, and we're not just statistics. We need to also remember that the employer, in order to pay us, has to perform. And in doing so, sustain and continue their business. That's the only way we're going to keep earning, unless the company have a lockdown and the whole of our we are. So we still have to balance it. We have to balance it. Informing a worker of their unreasonable or inappropriate behavior is not bullying. Shouting and carrying on in an office and your supervisor calling you and telling you that that's not the space for it, you're too loud. Using indecent language to a customer. That's not bullying if somebody calls you and corrects you. And when the organization decides to implement changes or do restructuring, this is where I always say, it's not about you. It's not about you. Sometimes this has to happen. And sometimes an organization, Kim, has to take the decision to separate. And it has nothing to do.
They don't have a choice.
Exactly. Now, well, they don't have a choice because you didn't give them a choice. You're not performing. You show up to work when you feel like. You don't do no work. They have to reassign your duties to somebody else for it to be done. You take lunch, you don't return back to office till 3, 4, 5 hours later.
If
You
you're
show up to work, you're the last person to walk in the office and the first
person to
leave.
leave.
They're going to sever ties. Those things are not bullying.
Yeah. So this brings me to this question.
Yes.
How can bullying occur? I mean,
Interesting.
we're looking at power imbalance. Yes?
Yes.
And we know that bully misuses relative or assume power to intimidate, yeah, them humiliate, them threaten, or try to control on repeated basis. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So let us look at power imbalance because
Yes.
there are many ways of looking at it. Three.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So we're looking
Mm-hmm.
at upwards. We can look at a manager being bullied by an employee. Yes.
Yes.
We can look at the downward approach where an employee is bullied by their manager. And we can look at the sidewards where an employee is bullied by a team member or a colleague. So you realize that the bully always use power for their gain. It is
So
never.
it depends on how strong them is. It don't matter the position.
No, they're not looking for a win-win
perceived power.
situation. They're just dealing with power. Straight power, nothing else.
Okay, yes. Interesting. So what you're saying here, Kimmy, then, is that I'm going to use the word colleague because we're talking all night about supervisor and employee.
Mm-hmm.
But you're also saying that it can happen sideways, where we're on the same at the same level.
Same level.
Working together.
Yes.
Right? But you believe that you're louder than me.
Mm-hmm.
You're more forceful than me.
Mm-hmm.
You might have better network connections than me. So because of your connectivity, then you can intimidate how I do my task, or even carry work on give me where nobody never give to me.
Because so this is what you're supposed to do. Yes. That's not my job. That's for you to do. I'm not doing it. That's what you need to do. I'm not doing it.
Even though they were tasks, I understand. Even though they were the ones tasked, but because of the perceived power.
Power and authority, because they assume that they have authority over you.
Okay. I see, says the blind man. I see, says the blind man. Well, listeners, we're still talking about workplace bullying, and we are trying to bring it down to the minute as possible so that you all can understand how to, as Kimmy says, look at the balancing effect, understand what constructive criticisms are, what reasonable, and I'm repeating that word, reasonable disciplinary actions are. And we're also looking at what, instead of being a strong manager, seeping into that of a bully, where there is no coercion, intimidation, and causing emotional harm, social harm, because social things happen in the organization. Kimmy spoke about being disinvited, not included, excluded, pranked on in an organization. This is happening in the workplace, Kimmy. You say it happens in Jamaica. That's what you said. And I can, as a Jamaican professional, I can attest to that. But Kimmy, what are the impacts of bullying now? We talk about so many things tonight, but we really not address the impacts, Kimmy. We not address the impacts. So you heard me tear up earlier when I shared my story. Because the wound is still very much there. And there are many persons listening tonight that are going through stress because of workplace bullying, that are being faced with depression,
And I can attest to it that I've been through the stress and the depression.
physical illnesses. I have a friend who suffered from chronic headaches, digestive problems, muscle tension. My God.
Look here, man. I know the physical illness. Trust me.
Okay,
I can
workplace
feel the
bullying
neck
is
pain.
a disease. It is a disease. It erodes the body,
Oh, yes.
reduce self-confidence and self-esteem. So you're quickly eating away this human being little by little, day by day. Social withdrawal, and you spoke about it, not wanting to talk to the colleagues out of fear of being disrespected, out of fear of being ridiculed by your supervisor, and doing it so in public. I spoke about the public space as well. Deterioration in relationship with family and friends,
Yeah,
and
because
even colleagues.
it does affect you. It does affect your relationship with your family. So and I can attest to this. I am stressed at work. I'm
Yes.
stressed. I'm going through all of this mentally. And then I come home.
Yes.
And then the children are the ones that get it. And my
Can you
spouse.
just lash out?
They're the ones that are getting it. You know, I had to sit back and really retrospect and say, it's not gonna work, you know. I cannot take it out on them. They're not the cause of it. Why am I taking it out on them? I ended up on antidepressants.
Wow. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear, Kimmy. That is sad to know.
Had no
And
issue.
then at work, you're so afraid to sit down and talk to somebody, because I've gone through that. You had lunch, and depending on who is sitting in the lunchroom, you get a phone call to come in to the office to ask why you took lunch at that time. Why are you sitting with that particular person? Because they are below your rank.
No, darling, not only that. I couldn't even go to lunch with my colleague. We had to leave at separate times. We were both going at the same place to get lunch. Because we used to hang together. We ate lunch at the same time. So what I had to do, I was called up for that. The both of us cannot leave at the same time. So what I did, I allowed him to go out first.
Yes.
He jumped into the car and inched out of the parking lot. So, and then I would step down. And then when I'm on the road, I jump into the car.
So you can't
even. We would have gone to purchase our lunch.
You're not even given the opportunity to build solid work relationships.
No.
And you know what that does now? It reduces work performance and productivity. And you spoke about it. And you keep talking about your worth and your value and not being seen as a person. It affects performance. It affects productivity. You stop seeking any kind of guidance. If you would work until 8 o'clock in the evenings to get work done, you want to come out there as the clock strikes 5. As it strikes 5, you're ready.
You reach work at 8:30, you're watching the clock. So, okay, 12 o'clock is around the corner. All right, I go on the little 1, 2, Jesus wept. Or just 10 o'clock, but couldn't swear at 12. Okay. 12 o'clock, we gone straight through the, and even if you work and eat.
Exactly, because you're now a robot. So you're so structured that you don't go outside of the line.
When I was comfortable, before all of what was transpiring, before the bullying started, I used to work around the desk.
Can you just keep going?
I just
You're
kept
like
going.
an Energizer bunny.
I mean, work. It was time to go home, and you know, my spouse come and pick me up and I say, "Give me a couple more minutes, man."
So you were so immersed in work, Kimmy, that time wasn't a factor anymore.
No, but when the bullying started, I wanted to go home. I started watching the time. Okay, so it's now 1 o'clock. I have 3.5 hours leave. So leaving at 4:30, or should I take my lunchtime closer to the time to leave work so it don't appear that bad?
It reduced your morals. It reduced your motivation. It reduced your productivity.
Oh yes.
You spoke about the physical illnesses. Of course, it will increase your absenteeism.
Yeah.
Because now the workspace makes you sick. And of course, it increased staff turnover.
Oh yes.
Because I left.
And I left mine too.
And when you leave, people don't understand that there is something called institutional knowledge. Nobody can pay you for that.
No.
And institutional knowledge is required for sustainability and continuity.
And
And
even if
so
you're
when,
leaving,
yes,
you would have had an understudy to but based off the fact that what resignation 2 weeks if so long.
no,
Some
Kim,
persons
even if
would
you were
immediately text.
leaving, you're still there. People can call you. You're still so connected to the organization that you hand over so well, but you're still connected.
Yeah.
And so the transition period is so healthy that you gradually transition out. And as you say, you have an understudy. So that person who took over that desk has you so that they can garner the institutional knowledge that you have. But when you're emotionally broken, and let me tell you, listeners, we get it, people do not leave organizations. They leave the supervisors, they leave because of colleagues.
Oh, yes. Because I can tell you the very first job that I had out of school, if it wasn't for my supervisor, I would still be there now because I enjoyed what I was doing. But then I had to leave. Couldn't deal with it anymore.
And then it leads to compensation claims. People carry them to union. Yes, people report them. You have external investigation and legal ramifications taking place. So
If you have
organized,
persons who are like me,
yes.
When I left, I had a couple months left to get my gratuity, and I left my gratuity.
And I can talk about another colleague who did the same thing, Kim. So it's not about the money.
No.
And that is what persons need to understand. People will walk away from money. Anything that is called abuse, after a while, your strength becomes your guide and you walk away. And then the workplace loses its reputation. It becomes a revolving door. People only go there as a placeholder. They're not staying. They know what they're facing. And so they go there maybe because they don't have anywhere else to go. And it's just a placeholder for a time. And you keep seeing the high staff turnover. And everybody who leaves there has something negative to say. And so nobody wants to work with that organization. Right? And in marketing, what they say, word of mouth is the worst.
Oh, yes, man.
So when you have your internal customers, because we forget that employees are customers, disheartened, disloyal, demotivated, disenfranchised, what do you think will happen? I will tell you, hurt people talk. Hurt people talk. And they will talk. So employers, be mindful. Supervisors, if you know of any of your staff who are bullying persons, nip it in the bud. Boards, if you hear about executives, HR, nip it in the bud, call them in, fix it. And we did say earlier that it is okay to terminate. It doesn't matter the level. If that person is going against the human rights of another individual, then they are not fit to work in an organization.
All right. So with all of this said, a lot of persons might be wondering, am I being bullied?
Good question.
All right. So I went online and I did some research.
Yes.
And I came across, am I being bullied? Does someone, so this is a checklist that you need to ask yourself. Persistently attempt to belittle me or undermine my work.
Okay, so
Persistently
if I was,
and
I can answer the question. So if I was still working there, that would be a yes.
all right, so persistently and unjustifiably criticize me or monitor my work.
Okay, okay. And if I say yes here, so
All
you're going
right.
to give me the result when I finish, right?
Yes, man.
All
So
right.
persistently attempt to humiliate me in front of colleagues.
Yes,
Use destructive innuendo and sarcasm against me.
yes,
Physically or verbally threaten me.
yes, and triple yes.
All right. So freeze me out, ignore or exclude me.
Yes, depending on the day, is double yes.
Set me impossible deadlines.
Oh, yes, with threats.
Alter my work goals without telling me.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so if you responded yes to any of the questions mentioned above, then by all means, it is a possibility that you are being bullied.
All right, so you're saying to me then, Kim, having answered these questions, right? It is not in my head,
No, it's not.
right? I am not being dramatic, which I've been called.
No, you're not.
I am not being dramatic, right? I'm
No,
not
you're
hallucinating.
no, you're not hallucinating.
I'm not trying to thwart the process.
No, you're not thwarting any process.
This is the reality that I'm being bullied.
Reality that you're being bullied.
Okay, because I answered yes to every single one. And even though I laughed when I started, I'm being truthful. So, listeners, when we finish here, we're going to share these questions in the comment section. If you answer yes to any of them, please note, according to Kim's research, you are being bullied.
Yeah, you are.
Often, Kim, knowing that you're being bullied, knowing that you are being bullied, you are fearful. And so you start questioning yourself. Does it make sense to go to HR? You ask yourself. Does it make sense to speak to someone in higher authority? Well, I can tell you I've done that, and I'm told that as the subordinate, I am supposed to suck it up
Oh,
and not respond to my supervisor, right? So I can't have a differences of opinion. Remember, we spoke about differences of opinion, that it is not about bullying, right? It's something that you can do as a worker. I'm
yeah.
told that I'm not supposed to do that. Do I have any rights? So you ask yourself that too. Because if higher authority is telling you that what is happening to you, you need to deal with it, then you will question yourself to ask, as a worker, do you have rights? Is it me? Remember, I was told that I was thwarting, I was doing all the wrong things, right? I was overreacting. So now you start questioning yourself. Kimmy, you use the word delusional. So now you're wondering if it's all in your head.
Mm-hmm.
Am I making a moan out of nothing? Yes, because I was told that I was. Will I still have a job if I complain? And Kim, you spoke about this so very well, that somebody would question themselves through this. If they have a perceived network,
Mm-hmm.
perceived power, and you
Mm-hmm.
spoke about power imbalance.
Yep.
A person who sees somebody and they believe that they are connected in whatever way, they will question whether or not they will have a job, because even that perception of power creates what? Doubt.
Yeah.
And we're
That's
going to be honest, there are many persons who need a job. There are many persons who live day by day. And no matter if you're executive, office attendant, secretary,
you need the money to
you
pay
need the money. You live day by day because you have bills and you have mouths to feed. Guess what though? You are not alone in self-questioning. I did the same thing.
So did I.
I shared one experience and I can tell you, my book is coming out. And it will be a read. So I want you to look out for it. And as I'm going to say it publicly right here, when I publish that book, I might not be able to ever work but for myself because I'm going to levy the truth. I'm going to levy the truth. The book is entitled My Testimony, My Truth, My Journey, the things that bled my heart. This is all about workplace bullying, guys. All about workplace bullying, all of what I went through. So much so that I had to leave from a job that would make me literally bleed and don't care. That's how I loved it.
But because of
Because
the
I
bullying,
was
I have
being
to
character
leave.
assassinated. I went to a workshop and I'm stopped. Based on your performance here, I don't understand how it is said that you're not doing any work.
Wow.
And I'm like, what? And that was the first light bulb. I went somewhere else and I'm said, you're giving trouble. I said, me? And the person said to me, and a person, high authority person too, I questioned that statement when it was made because that is not who I know.
Wow. So what happened? What was the outcome?
I left.
Well, I left my one as well. For peace of mind and happiness, I walked away.
Come on, Kimmy, I
I
had
went
to
into
leave.
another job, but I had to walk away.
Kimmy, I took a pay cut and a demotion.
For me, I everything fell on my husband. I had to walk away. I'm sorry. For peace of mind and happiness and not ending up in Ward 21 or Bellevue, I had to walk away.
Currently, there are no policies directed at workplace bullying. The union describes it best. It is an invisible creature that is emotionally driven. And so it is often your words against your perpetrator. The strong and most articulate person is victorious in any deliberation. In most cases, the authority, and I'm not talking about position, the authority is deemed in the right. Therefore, therefore it is, sorry, I'm still so emotional, Kim. I'm having my words twisted. Therefore, it is your responsibility, listeners, to document, find witnesses, and keep records of the bullying.
The witness can become a victim in many instances. So this may be career suicide for that individual.
You
But
are
that's something that most persons are afraid to speak out.
You are indeed correct. However, the evidence is not for you to present, listeners. This is where you get an industrial relations consultant. And you do not need to be a member of a union to get representation. Remember that. They will guide you. But because you as an employee, you have rights. Don't let this invisible disease called workplace bullying hinder you from defending your human rights. The union does not only use the labor line, they use all the laws associated. So some of the laws, if you never know that they'll use, apart from the labor law and the regulations, is that they'll also look at the Jamaican Constitution. They look at laws related to Kim. I'm losing my thought, but defamation of character. So they look at those things too, because remember, you're chronicling it. And one of the things that you have to do is that when that person presents that bullying behavior, you need to send them an email expressing how their behavior made you feel. And yes, I can tell you, you will have repercussions where that is concerned, because they're going to respond to you in a very derogatory way. But remember, it's about gathering evidence. You also need to ensure that these persons stop infringing on your rights. And you might be helping somebody else. Yes, you might be helping somebody else because you believe that you're the only person being preyed on, but there might be many other persons that are being preyed on. So strengthen self, stand up. And I'm certain that, like Kimmy and I, who have survived to talk and to express and to give you solutions and the way forward when dealing with workplace bullying, you can become the voice of the voiceless and the advocate for somebody who can't advocate for themselves.
So, Diva Professor, all is not lost. Workers have rights. They have an outlet.
Yes.
Not just to voice, but to acquire recourse, really.
Yes, Kimmy, they do. They can opt to fight for justice and truth to reclaim their dignity, or they can fight by leaving. Walking away from abuse doesn't mean that you're weak. Walking away from an abusive relationship is a sign of strength.
Bullying, so you're telling me walking away from where I was a sign of strength for me?
It is not easy to walk away into the unknown, Kimmy.
That's true.
Workplace bullying is abuse and must not be tolerated, masked, or shunned. We are out of time, Kimmy. Lots to talk about.
Certainly.
But we must end here. Listeners, thanks for joining us. Let us continue this conversation in the comment section. Until next week, I am Diva Professor.
And I'm Kimmy.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.